At the little town called Brajchino, and if I understand correctly, the bus leaves tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. or if I want to stay a day, it then leaves the next day at 10 or at 1. An old VW bus. I'm working my way higher up into the hills on this dirt road. Reminds me of the Jiashan trip that I made in China to a small town. Lonely Planet, of course, just tells you it's here, that there's a monastery that works like a hostel, but it doesn't tell you just the slightest little bit of information that might be useful, like up the hill on the dirt road. So I kind of got this information, if that's true, by hand signals from a local who didn't speak English. So I'm just working my way up. Okay, I've climbed about as far as I'm going to climb with my day pack on. I left my pack down below in the hopes I could find the monastery and then go back down and get it. But of course that'd be too much to ask from Lonely Planet. It needs to maintain its unethical, incompetent stance, which is only getting worse under BBC, of course. This is interesting. Providing a source of water. It may be coming out of a spring out of the mountain. I saw the bus driver fill up his water from a similar spigot down below. I see these symbols on a few buildings, and there's a sign down where the bus stops that has a whole bunch of names, what look like places. And this symbol with some mileage, it looks like, or time notation next to a pretty little apple orchard, protected by this old stone fence. So my plan B is to go down here, pick up my bag, roll down the hill a ways to a house that had a rooms sign in English, and under it said Zimmer, which I think I don't know what that means. Maybe German or something, for the same thing. And I'm going to park my bags there, walk around the town, particularly if nobody's there, film everything, and then if nobody is there, plan C, I'm going to start walking back down the hill till I get to that other little town where I saw another place that said Room Zimmer. Now here's a signpost. It vaguely says Brajchino, something else I can't read. And then some arrows that go off to the right. And across this bridge, which is not a very strong, substantial bridge, hooks around and goes off to the right. I have no clue what any of those signs other than Brajchino mean, but looks like it'd be a pretty hike if I were going to be here that long. It's interesting to see that between these rows they've planted some crops, and I'd wondered why they hadn't done that and I hadn't seen it earlier. Seems like an obvious use of already accessible soil. Here's this elderly lady working with a hoe. I don't know what she's working on. But I saw this chair here in the middle of the field and wondered if it was here for her to rest in. Certainly it would scare me if I was a crow or another grain crop-eating bird. So this is Divna's home, where she rents rooms out on the second floor. They started building this 25 years ago, but she's lived here 15 years, she and her family. And it should be a good visit. Incidentally, the cost of this is €15 per night. So here is the map. Now, right about dead center, right there where you see 2, is where she is, where her home is. And right about in dead center, where you see the double opposing arrows, is where the bus dropped me off. Everything else on the map that is surrounded by red is apparently Brajchino. So I will go up the hill, which is where I've been already in my trek to find the monastery, to the right down and then to the right up. And there you can see some monastery, but I never saw. And the lady Divna, who owns it, she and her husband, advised me that The bus schedule is 7, 10, and 1 every day. So that means I can stay for 2 days. My plan is to hike across that bridge and wherever that road takes me tomorrow, starting early in the morning. I've not seen little puffball spore things like this. So I think I'm right where that restaurant, Rokasa, I can't read it from here, is. I'm approaching it. And so I'll go past that, probably following this blue line just to explore. And that should be it. And apparently she just calls up there and they open it up for me. I have to be careful when I'm shooting this because the ants have some symbiotic relationship with this tree and they're running up and down it continuously. This looks to be completely new and a somewhat strange architectural surfacing look. And somewhere up here I am to be able to find a small store that opens at 5 o'clock. We can see that building's still in use. Perhaps it's been restored, somewhat it has, I can see, as this wall and as this house. While either newly built or restored, hopefully it's maintaining the typical architectural design and materials. Preservation of the old buildings is cool and appropriate to a small tourist village like this, tourist village to be. That house, of course, an anomaly. Many of these houses look like they're not occupied. It may be that people come here from Skopje in the summer. It's cooler, perhaps. Quaint old pathway. Maybe some restoration has taken place. Certainly all that block work is new. Hopefully they can keep the old look and still have the amenities inside that they want. I'll go left. Old building fallen in, maybe someone will have the dollars to come and restore it. Who knows? Folks who were chatting inside that backyard came out in the alley to watch the old unicorn go by. Although I doubt that totally unusual. That was my Laria Poland hat. That's good. You can see that there's been restoration here on the outside, but the preservation of the style. These are the old tiles, probably replaced there. Be careful walking under this building. It's a lottery ticket as to when it's going to fall, or that door when it's going to fall. I don't know if somebody's put that log up there to hold that wall, but I don't really think it's going to do it. We're climbing up an old road. Here, walls of the road, but provide that terrace support. Much of this area still being used. Hello, Burl. How are you? I, of course, can't avoid a small, gnarly little dirt road in deference to, or lack of deference to, an asphalt one. They all walled, terraced eons ago. Which way to go? Each intriguing. I'm making a loop around the town. Reminds me of the place I like to go up in the Grove on to mountain bike, where the old ranch used to be. It has the spectacular views of the Tetons. Imagine the terrific effort to build these walls. It served a dual purpose. Not only did it keep livestock out of the orchard, but also it was a way to get rid of what must be a tremendous amount of rock and hopefully leave some dirt. Would this have been a residence or a store at one time? This is the Bay's house. And the Bay was a leader, so this is probably an old restored home. All these doorways seem to have a sprig of something on them for some reason. Probably an old outbuilding. It appears that people may buy a piece of property that has the old buildings on, which they preserve and restore, and then build whatever it is that they really wanted for themselves. That's kind of their cultural balance, if you will. What a wonderful sound it gives the nearby inhabitants. Lovely cool breeze on this very lovely day. Lovely display of what I think is a lovely wall of what I think is lilac, or some part of that family. What do I know? There's supposed to be a bunch of churches in here, but I have not seen one yet. As opposed to over where I couldn't walk very far without finding a church. This building that I saw on the way in is the old schoolhouse. Think of the teacher standing up here and the principal yelling at the students that it's time to get to class. And the kids hanging out the windows yelling at their friends. And how these hallways must have rung with noise. Many kids sat in their chairs and longed for summer vacation to come. Looks like a nice old door. It's interesting. I wonder what this room was and why it has an adjoining room. Did the maps or the blackboard hang on this rack? I always like keeping track of pool games. Some kind of scale. I'm guessing you put what you want on the large platform and then the counterbalance is here. Whatever it was, it dealt with the Second World War. And for some reason it's been totally destroyed. So right now we're to the upper left of those opposing arrows, and I'm going to take the left intersection since I came down the right intersection. I wonder if that platform up there was used for the same purpose I thought it was used in those other buildings. And is this any kind of a typical decoration motif? Looks like the Canadian maple leaf symbol and their mail slot. This may be the original city well, reworked many times. Thought I would go down here and take a look at this alley I'd seen earlier, just because it looks so quaint. Pretty sprig of flower. Cut back up, but it's always cute to see these narrow little walkways. And it's a very rural area. Here we get a pretty good look at how these logs were used. Normally they didn't protrude, but this may be Temelovsky's old house. And this is a very nice archway. Pretty sprig of flowers. You wonder if that one, the blue one, is part of it in just one mutation or extreme variant. Apparently this is the Temelovsky home. Maybe there were other outbuildings here at one time. Obviously restored. And still in use, that outbuilding. And I think this may be the Kostovska Snezana home. Restored and looking pretty. Here, after checking out the map, after looking for it up that road, I discovered this little sign here, and it's up this way. There you can see 4 other monasteries along this route. Okay, so the monastery I wanted is on this map, and it's to the right, SV Petka, right in the right hand corner, lower corner. And then this will be part of the upper trail hike tomorrow. Picking up that Svetil, and then Bogorodika, and then Archangel here. And if I continue back along and then back up the road to there. I doubt I'll want to continue all the way around, but maybe so. I'm up there because there's a big truck coming down, and when I first started my hike there was a regular large size cement truck coming back down. I'm back from my walk, and Divna has given me something to drink, some orange drink. What? So the majority of houses that we see, particularly those that look like they're closed, and it's because they are owned by Americans and Canadians. People who are Macedonian who left here 15 or 20 years ago for the United States and Canada and come back here to visit. And these properties, all of them, seldom ever sell.